I'm your host, coming to you from California, Taylor Engle, and today we have a very special guest with us. Charleen Caabay, aka Chef Charleen, is co-founder and chief innovation officer at the People's Ecosystem, the winner of Food Network Chopped 2016, and a successful cannabis entrepreneur chef in the space. From THC-infused mango hot sauce to infused stuffed mac and cheese, Charleen's recipes are sure to make your mouth water. Charleen, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you please let us know where you're coming from?
Sure, thank you for having me. Sure, my name is Chef Charleen Caabay, and I'm here out in the Bay Area of California, and yeah, I'm excited to be on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. So why don't we just start off by you talking a little more about how you were led to cooking and creating in that way in the first place?
Sure. Well, cooking came, basically I have a long lineage of cooks in my family. It goes as far back as my grandmother to my mother. I have an older sister who loves to cook as well. And even my father loves to cook. Like, it's in my blood at this point.
Yeah. Oh, very nice.
Mm-hmm. And pretty much like until I was old enough to touch a spatula or turn on the stove, like, yeah, I've always been cooking something.
Oh, wow.
I basically just learned along the way from looking over my family's shoulders and being that extra helping hand in the kitchen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about it brings you the most joy, would you say?
Well, like I said, it's in our culture, the Philippine culture. Like when it comes to food, that means there's going to be family gatherings, communal eating. Either a party is about to happen. I think what really resonates is it just brings everyone together.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great. So how did cannabis tie into things for you?
So cannabis came in later, obviously, like when I was older enough. And I had a restaurant, and I've always, even at the time when I had my restaurant, I was still an advocate for cannabis, like recreationally. I was always fascinated with, the traditional brownies and cookies, and that whole, with edibles like Rice Krispie treats, and being able to get high off it. But I've become more fascinated in extracting the plant and pulling the medicine from that, and the different ways that I was able to share the medicine with different people, recreationally and medicinally. Again, it started, I would experiment after hours at my restaurant. I extracted cannabis as simple as just putting it in a crock pot. Then I learned how to extract it in making RSO, or cannabis oil. Right. And from there, again, I was able to extract the plant at a greater yield. And once I got it tested and I got the numbers, like, it's all math and recipe development.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine it'd be kind of similar to baking as far as like the perfect measurements.
Right.
All coming together to either be great or not good at all.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing is just the dosing.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Trying not to overdose. But again, the worst case scenario, you'll either feel nauseous, or you get more hungry, or you fall asleep for longer than usual.
Right. Yeah. It's not the worst in the world. Some people are looking for that. Okay. So can you now talk a little bit about how you co-founded People's Ecosystem and sort of, I know the organization does a lot on behalf of the legacy market and minorities in this space. So can you just talk a little bit about your involvement?
Sure. So I'm one of the co-founders of the People's Ecosystem. We literally started, me and my business partner, we started in the closet as basically I fell under the Measure Z in Oakland, California, and we were able to open like a members only club. And in the closet, we had 3 strains. We needed to add more to the menu. So we needed edibles at the time. Like I made edibles for fun. I started off with like 2-piece chocolates at 10 milligrams, 5 milligrams each. I made little tarts, medicated tarts, brownie bites, um, small doses just to start. From there, again, our collective grew. We knew that this market has a lot of potential in growing, in creating generational wealth for our communities. From there, we really wanted to open a dispensary, and we kind of went through that route of how are we going to get a dispensary in this market. California was challenging, but we were able to get a delivery license, so we started there. From there, we acquired a dispensary in Portland, Oregon. It was the fastest way to get in the legal market, to learn the business, and to understand, how to be compliant and how to function, how to intake product, and all that. So that was definitely a learning lesson. Then while in Portland, at the time I was the chief operating officer, so I ran operations there. We ended up to sell that dispensary just to come back to California so we could reopen operations here. But then pandemic hit. So during that transition, there was so many obstacles in getting any of these businesses or just being in the market alone. Yeah. And during COVID and the pandemic, me and my business partner, we kind of sat down and we had to create a pivot because the current pivot was not working for us. As much as everyone wants a dispensary, we learned that there's a lot of obstacles. That's not going to help build generational wealth. We lost a lot of money in different areas, but we also gained a lot of money in different areas. So finding the balance was challenging. During the pivot, we created the people's ecosystem. From that, we learned that we want to be able to help our community, BIPOC, women-led people in the industry, and pretty much to teach them and alleviate any obstacles that we experience, to prevent them from experiencing that too, because you could lose a lot of money. I think that's what comes down to it, is that people are dropping down like their house, the money that they've held against their house, or put, their business against the house or something, or, putting their personal savings, their personal capital, their own capital that they grew themselves, to only come into an industry that's basically going to take it all in seconds. The ecosystem, again, we're providing services to different people that need that assistance, that need the guidance, that need funding. Those are the main things. I think finding a company that was willing to help them, go up, to become sustainable, and not gouge their ownership. I think that's another thing. People, small businesses, they get into industry not knowing that they're going to have to require debt in order to get to move up the ladder. Right. But in that process, their business gets taken away, their ownership gets taken away, and they're left with a fraction of what they created. So being, again, with the ecosystem that we created that, and we're just, again, creating a pathway for folks so that they could build their own generational wealth in this industry.
Oh, it's incredible, the work that you're doing. And it's so important to spread awareness around these issues, because it really is plaguing so many businesses across the nation. And I don't think enough people are aware of that. So yeah, definitely important to spread as much awareness as possible and try to help people in any way. So yeah, thank you so much for the contributions that you're doing at the People's Ecosystem.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So okay, so now we're moving into the flash question section, which is, I have 10 questions and you'll have 60 seconds to answer each one.
Let's go.
Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so first up, what is the #1 cannabis product that you cannot live without?
The number one cannabis product, I would say flower. There's always got to be some type of flower abutted near me, close to me, or
Yeah.
within reach. I don't have to smoke every day, but as long as it's there, like
Yeah.
I would say flower, because
Okay.
even if it's an older batch, I can extract it, make an oil. I can do it with food.
Right. Yeah.
Flower.
Okay. No, classic. Do you have like a favorite strain?
I love the OG strains. I'm a Jack Herrera fan, Gorilla Glue, Blue Dream.
Yeah. Oh, I love Blue Dream.
I mean, yeah, the classics.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong. All right. What about some advice that you might have, or what is like the number one piece of advice you'd give to a chef using cannabis in their creations?
I would say low and slow in dosing. Um, it's a trial and error.
Yeah. I would
Trial and error, and as being the chef, you have to be ready to be committed to do the trial and error.
I could imagine, because I've attempted to make cannabis oil twice, and that was more than enough for me. So it is not an easy process at all. Okay, what are your thoughts on cannabis in the workplace, or cannabis while you're working, I should say?
I try to advocate it as long as work is done.
Yeah.
I mean, my thing is, I know they say like, well, don't operate heavy machinery, of course, but like if you could function and still do your work at 100%,
Yeah.
then I mean, I have no qualms against it.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I don't know if this is bad, but sometimes I've told some folks that like you just need to step out, take a few puffs, and let's reset.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, it helps, and sometimes it makes you more productive. It kind of just depends on the situation. So I completely agree.
And sometimes the best ideas come out after a good session. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. And something as creative as cooking, or anything creative, really, definitely helps. Okay, you did mention earlier that one of the trickiest things of like infusing food with cannabis is dosage. So obviously edibles are pretty notorious for being like a little too much, especially for a first-time consumer. How have you kind of navigated that over the years and figured out what the right balance is there?
Mhm. Um, it's tricky because it definitely takes experience and those that are willing to get medicated. Because again, if you're new to it, I mean, if you're not ready to try it and expect, the when it hits, then you might have to be careful. Um, but I feel like again, small dosage. Sometimes, I mean, again, it gets tricky because sometimes folks don't know what a small dose is. You could have one brownie, and that will throw you to the edge.
Yeah.
So I think if they get their numbers right, my tip is like, get the percentages, get the numbers, and do the math.
Yeah.
Try to again do small. Maybe you need to get someone that's experienced and be like, here, can you sample this? But again, it's a trial and error. You might have to start with like a small piece, like science experiment. You may need like 3 pieces to try every hour.
Right. Yeah, low and slow is always the best move, is what I hear. Okay. And what is some advice you would give to somebody who wants to get into cooking with cannabis?
I say do your homework, research what the research what THC can do for somebody, or CBD. Understand the plant and what you're using from it. There's so many different products out there, and I think it's just self-education. There's enough information online to get, and it's always good to start there. You can make a beautiful steak, cake, brownie, or whatever, or chicken, or what, and you could infuse it all.
Right.
There's no limitations. I think a lot of folks think like, oh, I could make this medicated. You can make anything medicated. Drinks, like dessert. I mean, everything. So
Yeah.
I think when it comes down to it is like, what's the experience you want from that dish?
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, no, that actually ties into my next question for you, which is what is the sort of strangest or most unexpected infusion that you've ever made with cannabis?
Strangest, I thought um like I used to have like again after hours at the restaurant.
Right.
I used to have cooking oil, medicated cooking oil for special occasions. And I would just cook my regular food that was on my menu, but with that cooking oil.
Okay,
I
wow.
wouldn't say it's strange, but it wasn't what I was used to. I mean,
Yeah, not just
it
like a brownie or a cookie.
exactly. It's it's
Yeah,
it's it's a savory dish.
right.
Um, so I don't know if that would be considered strange or like, I mean, again, it's not normal. It's
Yeah.
becoming normalized, but it wasn't normal to me.
Yeah. No, I definitely. I think it's slowly becoming more normal, but it's still
Exactly.
sort of like weird to hear about a normal savory meal being infused rather than it just being a
Yeah.
brownie or a cupcake or
Like I
something.
cooked it live and I gave it and they ate it and they had a
Yeah.
fun
Oh,
time.
that sounds amazing, honestly. Um, okay, do you have a favorite cannabis or food specific blog, podcast, or publication that you kind of use your go-to for information?
I don't have a specific podcast, but YouTube. I'm gonna give it up to YouTube. I learned how to extract cannabis oil to make RSO. I've seen so many different kinds in that folks have done like in their home. I enhanced it with better. I feel like my yeah, the way I created it, like my system was legit. It was flawless. I use mason jars, coffee filters, but at restaurant grade. So I
Oh,
had like a 20 cup coffee filter. So I was able to strain at least up to half a pound of trim. And
wow.
yeah, so then I had like big mason jars lined up,
Yeah.
strained it. But YouTube, somebody did it
Yeah.
at home with like Pyrex and their different dish pans, and they same concept. You what do you call it? You shake it with a mixture, you strain it, and then you drain it. So I created that concept and created my own line.
Wow. I hope you
Yeah.
have like a really great photo of that because that sounds like it'd be really cool.
I gotta look through my archives because oh my gosh, I had a good time. Like
Yeah.
again, I probably did a handful of extractions and I made up to like 20 grams of oil. So and
Oh
each gram was 500 milligrams. So I had like
my God. That is
one little jar that I
insane.
always kept with me. I hid it like it basically allowed me to understand edibles, how to create it, how to infuse things. um and I still to this day, like I'm fascinated by it, how it can heal different people, and um just the multiple things you could create with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. All right. Well, shout out to YouTube for that.
Yeah.
Um, all right. What about for you as an inspiration? Is there anyone who comes to mind in the industry or in your personal life as far as cooking with cannabis?
Mhm. um I favor a lot of chefs, folks that just put their food out there. Like I don't have one particular one. I mean, there's so many now
Oh,
that
yeah.
I love. But I give it up to the chefs again that really push their culture. They push the boundaries of what to make. Um, and I mean, that's where I get, most of the inspiration. I mean, I give it up to those that really cook and show and bring in the community that way.
Yeah, I agree. You can definitely tell a difference when someone is really putting passion into their cooking and it really
Mhm.
shines through. So,
Yeah.
all right. What about, I asked you about the strangest cannabis creation you've ever
Yeah.
made, but what about your favorite? Like, do you have an all-time favorite that kind of stands out?
Let's see. I mean, when it comes to sweet chocolate,
Mm,
I love medicating chocolate because again, it's multi-use. Um, I love making chocolate, like infused chocolate covered strawberries. Um, I make a mug cake for personal. Like I love cakes and I shouldn't be eating cake all the time, but a mug cake, it's
perfect.
basically Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
It's a bite size. I could dose it how high I want it. And that cup alone is like, it's solid.
Yeah. That's
Um,
actually a brilliant idea because I love mug cakes.
yeah. So I just lost what was the question?
Your favorite
Oh yeah.
cannabis infused creation.
Yeah, those would be my favorite
Yeah.
for sweet. But as far as my favorite for savory, soups or chowders. I've made like a arroz caldo, which is a popular Filipino rice porridge with ginger, sometimes shredded chicken. But something warm like that, like I'm gonna be honest, I caught COVID in January and I just medicated soup. Arroz caldo was one of them. And I swear, like it already heals, but when you add it as medicated, like I was good to go.
Wow. Oh, that
I
sounds
was
so
good to
good.
go.
It sounds like it would blend really well with any kind of soup.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm. It's
nice.
like a double healing. The soup alone is
Yeah.
healing, but when you get medicated and you're in bed, like you're in bed regardless. Like
Yeah,
you
right.
don't have to take any medicine that can damage your liver, you know?
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Um, okay, final question. Can you tell me about the first time you ever tried infusing cannabis into food, if you can recall what that was?
Sure. Um, I mean, it goes back to again, the classics, brownies, and cookies. Brownies was the easiest. You get the brownie mix and you mix in the butter. I didn't know how to dose it right. I remember making a whole tray. Each brownie was too strong. It put
Mm.
everyone out.
No.
Some people loved it. Some people said it was too much.
Yeah.
Um, but my ode would be to the brownies and cookies.
Very
This
nice.
is just the easiest, add in the butter, mix it up, done deal.
Right. Yeah. And everyone has had that brownie that was a little too much at one
Yeah,
point. So that is
the,
very nostalgic.
the first brownie experience.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. All right, Charlene. Well, those were all the questions I had for you. Is there anything else you want to add at all?
No, I mean, I love talking about infusions and extractions and making edibles. It's my jam. I love speaking about it to people that are still new in the game, because there is a window of how to get in, and you don't have to be extravagant or overly high in medicating with cannabis. So I love it from the high dose to the low dose folks that are interested. And I love hearing folks that use it medicinally. I've had folks with an autoimmune disease where my chocolate would help them sleep. And my chocolate at the time was able to, again, help aid in their pain. So it's one of, I can't go wrong. I love it. It's forever a healing medicine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that must feel amazing to hear the results as well. All right. Well, lastly, can you let us know where can people find you online?
Sure. So social media, you can find me at Chef Charleen, Instagram, Facebook, Charleen Caabay. You can follow the business page on Instagram as well, the people's dot ecosystem, and also the people's dot cannabis. Um, and we also have a Fresno location at the people's dot Fresno. But any of those, if you just again start at the people's dot ecosystem on Instagram, you can find all the other channels and search us on Facebook as well. Our website is thepeoplesecosystem.com. And none of it should be hard to find. But again, look me up at Chef Charleen and feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm open. My door is open as far as sharing information and resources on best way to medicate with edibles.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Flow State presented by The Bluntness. Thank you for joining us today again, Charlene. And feel free to give us a review, a like, or share with your followers, everyone who's watching. For more bluntness in your life, you can find us on social media or directly at the source, thebluntness.com. Thank you.